Okay, this video is going to be about gem on curve. So I'm going to go over to the gem menu and I'm going to click on gem on curve. Ta-da! Select the curve to place gems. Boink. Okay. Now, you'll notice that the gems are facing the origin. Okay, and so I'm going to come up here to orientation and I'm going to click on down. So the first thing that we're looking at is you can choose where you want the gems to look at. Is it looking at the origin? Is it look what we consider down, which is the XY plane? And there's other ones here, and I'm going to turn on different objects in my scene here that I have off right now and show each one of these and how they control where the gems look. But I figured I would do down first, and the next thing that I want to show after that is let's talk about what the controls are for running this builder. Okay, so we have a certain number of gems. We have 14, as a matter of fact, right here. You can see it here, and you can see it in gem count here. Not to be confused with count here. This is a different mode, and it goes with this pull down here. So number of gem count here or on the screen. In every one of our builders, we can use the command line. So you can click on this and change it to from mere yes to mere no. And the reason we have all these functions in the command line is so that if you were to script a function, you would need to be able to pass all these parameters with a value to run a script. And some people are used to the command line, especially if you came from Rhino. Perhaps this is more, familiar. The next way to control the gems is out here in the viewport with viewport control handles. Okay, so we show the count, like I said. We show the spacing between the gems. That's this outline. Okay, that outline or spacing is controlled with this arrow, which you can see it's spacing 0.15. Or, of course, you can put 0.15 somewhere. There it is, right there. And over here in the interface is spacing 0.15. So any of these places you can control it. Let's do viewport control handles for a moment. So if I move this, then the rings get bigger to show that spacing. Okay, and then the gems move to orient themselves and get as close as they can to that spacing. So the distance from the girdle to this round outline is 0.15. So if you want these to be closer, you have to change the relationship. Okay, so I had to move the end of the, or this is actually the start of the gem row. So this controls spacing. If I click and hold on the green dot, that is the start of the gems, and there you can see it just dropped one. If I move too far, there, now it's at 13, and then I can tighten up that spacing. I'm still at 13, I'm looking right here, and then those basically touch the girdle. Now I know my spacing is 0.15, and it took 13 gems to go that distance. If you know exactly what size, well, let's do the start. Okay, so that's start position. If you click here, then you can slide the slider and change the start position. Okay. In the same respect, if we pan over here, we have the end position, and I can move that. Okay. So, and of course it's going to stop when it gets to the end of the curve. Go figure. The next handle that we have is the size. So if you want, let's say 1.5 millimeter gems, then you can click this and move. Okay, and there's 1.5. And you'll notice the spacing is a little greater because I would have to move the location. All right. So there's the size slider, or I'm sorry, viewport control handle. In the same respect, we go by the width. So if we go here, it says start width, okay, and over here is width. We let the length do what it's going to do based on what the width is. In this case, it is a round, so if I click this lock, now I can change the length of the gem versus the width. If I lock it, then since it's round, it's just 1.5 by 1.5. Okay, so if we had a marquee, then you could change the length and the width, and we'll get to that. Okay, the next handle is vertical offset. So if you want to move the gems up off the line or curve, okay, then you can do that. And especially if you have the gems on a surface and you wanted to move them up off the surface a little bit. As far as that goes, the default relationship of the gem to the line is on the girdle of the gem. Okay, so if we come over here on the right, this is the easiest place to change this. Right now the placement depth is on girdle. So if I click here, I can change it to the table, to where the gems are aligned on the curve at the table. We'll go back to girdle, or you can do culet to where the culets are on the curve. All right, there we go. Okay, next handle is horizontal offset. So sometimes when you're placing a curve on a ring or on a surface and it's not quite in the right spot, you may want to move the gems off the curve one way or another. Okay. Now, one thing that you'll want to keep in mind, okay, and there you can see the number changing. There I'm back to 0. If I can hit it, there we go. One thing you'll have to keep in mind is that when you offset off the curve, you are going to change the spacing, and there's nothing we can do to correct that. So if you go too far off the line, there you can see on an inside corner, the gems are going to start to crowd each other and hit. On an outside corner, they're going to spread apart. And that's because you're translating those gems off the curve. If you want to go that far off, this is predominantly for small tweaks. If you want to move it that far, you should draw a new line. That's the moral of the story. But there you go. I guess the last handle is rotate. Not real pertinent to round gems, but if you have, let's say, a princess or something and you want to rotate them, I'll come back when we do other gem cuts and we'll mess around with rotate. So there is the viewport control handles with the start and the end location and so on. So those can also all be found here, okay? So start position, end position, we have rotation, and again, you just slide the slider. Here's vertical offset, so there they go. All right, and we can get back to 0 if we want. There we go. Horizontal offset and spacing. The other thing to remember with our sliders or with the viewport control handles is if you hold down, here you can see, if I hold down shift, I'll snap to tenths of a millimeter. Okay, so that's how those work. Okay, let's go ahead. Now, once you get gems out where you want them, okay, and you're ready to commit them to the viewport, you simply hit enter or right click on your mouse, same thing. So, and then you have gems on a curve. If you want to edit them and you're like, oh, I don't need this last one, then you would select the gems and go back and run the command again. And you can get it out of command history. You can get it out of the list in the gem category, or you could hit F6 and you'll notice that gem on curve is up above this line, which means that it's one of the recently run builders. And then with those gems selected, it will go into edit mode. So if you didn't have the gem selected, it would run gem on curve again. But with gems selected, it'll go back and let you edit them. All right. Then once you're happy with what you have, press enter again and more gems. We also support history with this. So if you grab the curve and end up moving the curve, the gems will come with it. Okay. And then of course you can still come back and edit that. All right. Let's take a look then at some other, I want to finish out the orientation methods and then we'll keep working on gem on curve. So the next one I want to show you is origin. Origin, of course, is 0, 0, 0 in the viewport. So let's turn on a ring rail, and then I'm going to turn on this white curve too. So this might be indicative of a curve on a ring, a cathedral, or some other ring. Okay. For now, I'm going to throw these away, and I'll turn this layer off so we don't crowd the viewport here. Let's go ahead and click on the finger rail and run gem on curve, and there we go. Okay, so right now the gems say pointing down. So these up here, as you can see, point down, and then these over here are like, well, I need to point down. Well, that's no good. So I'm going to go over here and switch it to origin. Now all the Q-lets point toward the origin. Okay, let's do this one. So I'll select here, click on the builder, and they all look at the origin. So now I can move this. All right. So there's origin. I'm going to go ahead and throw these away, turn this one off, and let's talk about, now we'll do the next one. So the next one I want to show is object. So let's bring an object out here, and there I have a nice twisty half of a shank. All right, just a piece that I had from another video. And I'm going to turn on work 01, and there is an extracted ISO curve. Okay, so that's a different lesson if you don't know how to do that. Okay, so I'm going to click on the yellow curve and then go over and start the builder. And you can see that the last thing we did was looking at the origin. I don't want them to look at the origin. I want them to look at the object. And this is a really powerful option. So we can just come down here to object, and then it says select the orientation object. And you can click on it anywhere. Now all the gems face the surface. And this is where perhaps something like if the girdle is going into the surface, okay, then you may want to come over to the Z offset or vertical offset and do that. Okay, so there you go. Okay, my size is too large for this ring, so I would come over and change the width to perhaps 1.3. Now you'll notice that I'm getting 1.3, 1.35, 1.4, okay? That is controlled right here in units, okay? So let's take a look at units real quick while we're doing this. I'm going to kind of just meander through, and by the time I'm done, we will have hit every button in theory and apply those to what we're doing here with our orientation as well. So if I go to units, I can set the units so that the gem size can be hundredths of a millimeter. Here's 20ths of a millimeter, and that's how we get the 1, 105, 110, 115. I think I can quit. All right, and then we can lock it to tenths. All right, so right now we were in 20ths. Let's do tenths. Okay, so there's 1.3, and then if I go down and change, then I'm going to jump to 1.2, 1.1, 1.0. Okay, so you can lock it to that. Or, like I say, you can go to hundredths, and here's where it's going to pick just all those wacky numbers, and you're going to have to go try to source 1.36s. You know, that's fine. If that's the control that you want, you can do it. I usually rock it on 20ths because that gives you like the 1.25s, you know. Let's see if I can make it do that. There we go. So 1.25 or 1.3 or 1.2. All right. And then we can move this up. All right, so now let's do some other buttons in here. So that was units. That is orientation to the object. We messed around with Z offset. Let's do mirror. So let's say that we want this gem row to start right at 12 o'clock and come down, but come down evenly, right? Because as you can see, the distance here is not the same as it is here. So we could turn on mirror. That will move, well, it won't move it. We need to move it. This is the start of the gem, so of the row. So as I move the start away from where it was, okay, and then I come up here, you can turn on snap as well, and I can snap to, I'm only snapping near. Why would that be? There's mid. Okay, so I'm at the mid, and then if I come over and if you watch, you can't see it, but it's right there. If I turn off snapping now and move the end, then you can see that the other end comes up with me. And then it's just a matter of how many gems do you want, okay, and what the spacing is. So that is mirror. Okay, let's do another orientation. I think we're good there. Hit enter. Yeah, I love it. Okay, let's do the next orientation method. I'm going to go ahead and delete this. I'll turn these off in case we want to come back to those. But the next one I want to bring out is this curve here. Okay, and this is just a curve. This is a planar curve. Okay, it's flat. It's on an angle, but it's flat. It cannot be wavy to do this next orientation. So let me get it out here. As a matter of fact, for reference, I'll bring out the finger rail again. Here we go. All right, so we select this curve and go to Gem on Curve Builder. And we don't have a surface anymore, so it went back to down here, so that's fine. But let's go over to Curve Plane, all right? And when we flip that, or click that, you'll notice that the Q-lets are pointing out this way, okay? And the reason for that is you have a 50-50 chance. You can see that we show the plane, by the way. There's the plane that we're projecting to. And the direction of the curve controls which way the gems face. So I'll show you what I mean. But for now, you can click on flip right here. Or again, remember we have the command line up here if that does anything for you. So we could click that and hit flip, and notice it turned it on over here as well. So that's easier to just hit flip, okay? And everything else is the same, the spacing, the location, and so on. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's flip these back, okay? So they're backwards, if you will. And I'll hit enter, and then I'm just going to go ahead and throw these away. And the direction of the curve, you can click on direction here, and you'll notice that it's pointing this way. If I left click, it'll flip them. Okay, so left click again. And then I'll hit enter. Now I've changed the direction of that curve to go this way. Let's click on here and watch what happens. There, they face that way. So if you're going to be working on this a lot, it might be worth your while to flip the direction. Otherwise, you can just hit flip, and that's totally okay. Flip or flip. All right, so that is, and again, we support history, so if we do this, and there it goes, then there you have it. Okay, let's do the next one. All right, so I'm going to delete those. I'll turn this off, and I'm going to turn on this layer. And so here we have a halo. Now, the next one is, let's go ahead and click here, and okay, there's curve plane, so that certainly works for that. Okay, and this one is going to be a little redundant. So curve plane works for this, okay, but the next one I wanted to show you was XY. Well, the XY plane is this plane here, so that was the same as the curve plane in this instance because that curve is parallel to this plane. This is also redundant with down, okay, but just for consistency, okay, we're going to do each plane, all right? So to be, like I say, to be consistent, we did the XY plane, okay? So XY and down, same thing. But let's go ahead and do the next one, which is this curve, okay? And this plane, as you can see right here, is the ZY plane, okay, or YZ. All right, so let's select that curve and go here. And then let's go to the orientation. And down here, oh, I skipped XZ. We'll come back to that. Here's YZ. All right, then we show you the plane. And that way you can work, you know, that way you can work in a different viewport and still have those gems face that way. And that keeps you from having to maybe work flat and then rotating it so that they face this way, or working here and, you know. So there's that one. And then we'll turn on this curve. It's smaller, but we'll select this and go here. And this, of course, is going to be the XZ plane, okay? So if we go here, there's XZ, and we show you that plane, and there's all my gems facing that way. So XY, YZ, XZ. Oh, I got a spacing problem here. So I can just right click and run gem on curve again and fix it. Oh, and actually fix it correctly, if you will. So let's go ahead and do that again. There, that's better. Bink. Okay. Woohoo. All right, so there's a bunch of gems. I'm going to go ahead and delete this and this and this. I'll turn this off and this off and this one off. All right. Last but not least is let's turn on this curve and let's do the last one, which is y-axis. Now this one is pretty fun. So, maybe you have a ring here and then you're going to build a matching band, or you're building something out here. And yes, it's lined up with the y-axis. So if we click here and run the builder, okay, now if you are on origin, okay, that won't work because the gems are pointing at the origin, okay, and so that's a problem. Okay, so we want them to be facing like it was on a band. So we come over here and go y-axis, and then when we hit enter, I'm not going to worry about making this an eternity ring or whatever. So there you go. They are facing as if they were on a finger. And that's let's do this real quick. So let's turn this off, and you might notice if we run the builder on here, and let's just move these, there we go, and we'll move these over here, and let's say it's facing the origin, and everything's great. And then you move this over here. Well, you are on origin. And so when you move this, the gems update, and there you go. They're facing the origin. Well, you can fix that very easily if you just come over here and edit the gems. Then we can do y-axis again. And now it's fixed. All right, very good. So there are all the orientation methods. Let's go ahead and do some more in the builder. Okay, the next thing that I want to show, let's go ahead, and I got the finger rail out. I'm going to start this, okay, is the spacing method. Okay, so let's see what we've done up here. We've done mirror, we've done flip. Group output is just that. If you hit enter and then select one gem, they all select because they're grouped, and that's just convenient. Okay, obviously if you uncheck that, we won't group them upon creating the gems. Spacing method, typically you run this on spacing, but sometimes you want it fixed. And what that does is, let's go ahead and come down here and move. Okay, it keeps the spacing and the gems at a fixed distance. Okay, they are 0.15. They are 0.15, and then as I move, okay, it will drop a gem, okay, and so it keeps them, and then when it hits the red dot, it will drop the gem. When it can get one back in there, when it hits the center of the gem, it'll add a new one. So here it comes, center of the gem, boop, there it is. And then again, if we go this way, then it'll drop the gem off the minute you hit the center of it. But the gems are not moving, the spacing. Okay, that's fixed. If we go back to spacing, well, then it tries its best to maintain the number of gems until the spacing changes enough that it will drop a gem. And there the count went to 21. If I keep going, all right, here comes 20. And then you can see that as we go closer, then it'll match up what our distance is, and that's spacing versus fixed. Okay. All right. So let's get a well. Let's talk about shape. Okay. So I am going to turn on mirror again, and I'm going to move the beginning up to, let's turn on snaps, and I'm going to move this up to the midpoint. All right, just so that we have a fairly normal layout. Okay. And then let's go ahead, and we support all the different gem shapes. Okay, so there you go. So we could do, let's do a princess. Okay, or here's what I mentioned earlier, marquee. Where'd those go? Oh, it's right there. Wow, I'm like, we missed the marquee. Okay, so if you want the marquees to be going the other way, you can come over here and rotate this to whatever angle you want. For that matter, you could do something like this, or if you want them end to end, you'd obviously want to go to 90. Now, maybe in the next update, we'll be able to change the spacing between these on the fly, but it's very, very hard. And so what you want to do is just change the spacing to be what you want. Okay. So, as a matter of fact, my spacing bottomed out, as you can see here. If that's the case, you can type in a larger number if you like. So let's go 1.7 and hit enter. Hey, okay, like I said, let's go to 2. That's too much. You get the idea. And so that's what you do there. So I don't know how often you're going to do that. With marquees end to end, you might, but you just type in the number that you want. Let's go 1.8 and see what that does. That's a lot closer end to end. But let's go back to, that wasn't the greatest demo, but I think you get the idea. And then let's come back down to somewhere down about there. And let's do another button, which is transform every other. And that does just that. So let's go turn this on. Okay. And then you'll notice that every other gem is a different color. Okay. And so now I'm transforming the yellow ones, or not the yellow, the purple ones. And I'm going to go ahead and rotate these to 45, and then I can change the spacing. There you go. And when you do that, things will change, like here, because the number of gems needs to change such that that will do the every other. So it's physics. It's like, well, to go from here with these rotated on a 45, blah, 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 then it needs 2 of those here. But if you just move this, then it'll update and change. And that's not a bug, it's physics. All right. So There you go, though. That's kind of fun. All right, let's do some more. Okay, for this next part of the video, I brought out my demo ring that I use all the time. You may or may not have seen this before, but it's just a ring that I made that I can use for demos. So on this side of the ring, you can see that I placed some gems in bezels over here. All right, well, here's how we would do that. I'm going to go ahead and select this curve and go back to. Now, the last thing we did was this funky layout with princesses and so on. Now, you could go in here and say, okay, turn off transform every other, put it back to round, do this, do that, and chase all that. Or you can click up here at the top of the builder and reset to default. And that brings us back to something more predictable where the builder usually starts when you first run it. 2.0 millimeter gems and so on. Okay. All right. We'll make sure that we're facing the origin because that's where I want I could do origin or y-axis, either one. All right. Origin's fine. And I want these to taper. So let's go turn on taper. And then you'll notice that this one lights up. Here, I'll turn it off. The slider is off because they're not tapered. We only have the starting gem size and width-wise. Turn this on, okay. And then we can slide the slider, okay, if we want. So there's the start, which is green, or we can use the viewport control handle, all right. And so I'm going to go ahead and move this down, maybe to there. And then let's change this size to like maybe 1.8 or something. And then as we move this, now we got to leave room for bezels. So I don't want to go too big. All right, so let's go about there, give or take. I don't know. I'm not too worried about like designing the jewelry part of this as far as, oh, there we go. All right, so there's my spacing. Okay, let's call that good. Now, I'm sitting here looking at this and I'm going, okay, I like this layout, but what I'm worried about is setting this stone underneath this petal here. Like I like 2.3 to 1.7. I like the spacing. I like all of it. I just wish it was down further. Well, you could move this down and then it's going to change the spacing and or the size. Then you can move this one and try to get it back. Or you can go, all right, I want to lock the relationship of the green location and the red location to their distance. So start and end position, lock. Okay, now you can grab either one, the end or the start, and when you move it, it keeps that whole assembly the same. It just moves it along the curve. Yay! That's pretty fun. So now I can move that down and get more room to do my business. All right, so that is how, just for fun, we can run the builder. And I ran it once. Otherwise, it's right here, setting and bezel builder. And this is going to bottom out at 0.5, which is probably a good thing. Or I'm going to type, I'm going to go 0.35. There we go. And hit enter. So there's a bezel. And then to get these on the other ones, you would go over to gems and go to copy builder. Here's just a little sidebar for, and then we'd get you, and you all get a builder. What's the builder from? It's from this gem. Oh, which builder? The bezel builder. Okay, there you go. How'd I do? That one's tucked up there a little bit, but either way. Yeah, I'm a little low there. Okay, so that is how we do that. Oh, there's my twisty ring still sitting in there. Hello. Okay, let's do some more. I think we're almost done with Gem on Curve. Let's check it out. Okay, so we are almost done with Gem on Curve, but I've got a few more things to go. And actually, at this time of me recording this video, we have some new functionality that I didn't forget about. I'm just being dramatic. There's this whole section I need to show you. So I have a new ring out here, and I have an ISO curve on it. So let's click this, and let's run the builder. And what else do we have? We have display size. Okay, that is it's displaying the size. So if this is checked on, then they show up. The thing. So if you click this off, then off they. All right, I got it turned back on. Okay, so there we go. The next part of this, we've done shape. I'm just kind of reviewing. Gem outlines, okay, that's the white circles. Click this, turn them off, okay. So I usually like to rock with those on though, for sure. All right, I think that takes us through. I'm going to turn taper off, okay. Well, as a matter of fact, let's leave it on. And here's something I want to show you. So there it's tapering from 2.3 to 4.2. Interesting design. The next method is instead of dynamic, which is what we've been running this whole time, we're going to switch this to count. Now, I left taper on purpose because with count mode, you cannot taper. Click, we turn taper off. That is by design. Okay, here's what count mode does. You have a hard-coded number here. Do not get this confused with this gem count number. You can't change this. It's a readout. This one you can change. So here's what it's doing. In count mode, we have a distance from the green to the red. And in that distance, we're saying, give me 10 gems, okay? This is really handy if you have a certain distance that you're going and you have a certain number of gems that you want, but you don't know the size. There's all sorts of ways to use this. But as I move closer to the other end to maintain 10 gems, okay, oops, okay. You might as well see this. I'm going to leave this in the video, okay? I'm sitting here moving on this, and I'm like, man, what is wrong with this builder? I have position lock on still. Remember I said earlier you might want to turn that off? Oh, I'm going to leave it on. Well, that's what I get for leaving it on. Now watch. I'm actually glad I left that on because that might save you someday of going and saying, this is broke. No, it's operator error in my case. Having said all that, as I move this, okay, it's changing the size of the gem because to maintain 10 of them, which is the count, it has to change the size. Now, when you move this, depends on how fast your computer is, depends on your video card, depends on all these things. When you move it, don't get impatient. It's doing a ton of calculations in the background to figure out the spacing, the size, and all those things. You have no idea. This builder, Ben was normal when he started writing this builder, and now we're not sure, but sorry, Ben. Now, you can come over and lock this and move this back over and do this with count and then do that. So that's what's going on. Now, if we come over here and go, yeah, no, I need 15 gems, it's going to change the size. Now, they're getting pretty small because 15 in that distance is maintaining the spacing as well, which the spacing is 0.33. Well, let's change the spacing to 0.15. They update. That's a lot of math, man. That's above my, I was an art major, so I just know that it looks pretty. Okay, so then if we move this end, I think you get the idea. So as we move away from there, those get bigger. That is count. You can set it by here, you can set it by the distance, but it's going to sit and look at the spacing, look at the distance between, and make the size. That's the thing you can't control, is the size, because we're doing the count. All right. I think the last thing that we need to, so again, you cannot taper, okay? And you also, you'll notice that this is disabled. Mirror, you cannot mirror, and you can't transform every other with count. It just does that. It's really handy though for laying out some jewelry. The last thing that I want to talk about, and let's go ahead and hit enter here. And check this out. So here's another thing. Let's just say you're going to go edit this and you're like, you know what, the count's not that important. Okay, I'm going to switch back to dynamic. All right, now take a look at these boxes. They're at 1.8. When I switch back to dynamic, it's going to jump to the last setting that we had. That's how that works. We can't read that 165 and do that because it's in a completely different mode of this builder. But it's no big deal. You depending on what you want, you just change the size again, and I'm at 155, which is better for this ring. Okay, the last buttons that I don't think I've clicked on, okay, are some of them right up here. So this is reset to system default preset. You don't click that one very much. I'm going to go ahead and click it. And it goes back to what we save as our core reset function that's somewhere else in case you overwrite our default, okay? Which is the default is restore. This button here is reset to default preset. It doesn't change because this is our default preset, okay? But you can change that, and to do that, let's say that I mix this up and I prefer my gems to be 1.5 to begin with. Maybe I do 1.5 a lot. Let me see if I can actually get to 1.5. There we go. All right, so I come over here and I click the plus, save preset. Okay. Now, if you hit save as default preset, okay, then when you click this button, it'll reset to what this is. Okay. If you're happy with our point or with our 2mm one, okay, then don't do that. Just save this as this is my one, and I usually do an underscore instead of a period in file names or in any name. So this is 1.5mm round, you know. And so now you can hit OK, and we saved that preset, as you can see in the toast notification down here. Okay, so now And if you, by the way, if you mouse over, I must have hit this. If you mouse over a toast, which is this message, we keep it there till you close it. We figure you want to read it some more. Okay, so now if I hit reset, okay, my 2x2 is up, but now what I can do is come over. I saved a preset. Now I'm going to browse the presets, and oh, by the way, there is the 1.5mm round. So when I hit OK, it'll switch to that. So you can save as many setups as you want by saving a preset, and I would name them accordingly. So this is the master reset. This is whatever you have as the default reset, which ours matches right now unless you change it once again. Here's add a setup to a preset, and here's go browse them. If by chance you're running this builder and you don't want to run the builder anymore without making geometry, you could hit the red X or you could hit escape. And I was editing, so there was geometry there. But if we're running this and I hit escape, then no geometry. So let's see. I'm going to real quick go over this. We went over these. Orientation, we did mirror, flip, group, transform every other display size. Shapes we did. Taper we did. Units. These are just readouts, okay? 62% is the ideal cut. And, by the way, there's 0.24 carat weight of this row. And so as I move this, did I miss? No, I didn't. That goes up, okay? Gem count, that's a readout. Once again, we did units, and there's some sliders. All right, so that is how to use Gem on Curve.